I was speaking with a scientist the other day, saying how every time one of these things happens to us or to me, I get this childlike exhilaration, this exuberance. And it's actually before that, you do have to have that belief. You have to have that. A friend of mine who really helped me leap my abilities forward said when we started working together was, we're going to create a no judgment zone here where you can feel like you cannot fail.
Right.
No matter what you do, it's impossible to fail because in essence, we are all scientists, whatever your occupation, and a scientist never fails. An experiment never fails. Even exculpatory evidence is really valuable to a scientist.
Right.
So you cannot fail. And I want you to feel comfortable trying something huge that you can fail big, quote, fail big. And so you can achieve the impossible. And then when you do enough stuff and you see these things happen, you realize, impossible only lives in our fears.
Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everyone. This is Faust Chicho, in case you don't know. And today I have the good fortune of sitting with Buddy Bolton. Let me tell you about this incredible gem of a man that I found in this concrete jungle that I live in. Buddy is a professional practitioner with well-documented psychic and remote viewing abilities. He's been utilized by some of the top scientists at a variety of institutions, aerospace companies, and research groups across the country. He's also been called in to investigate some of the most notorious hotbeds of paranormal and unexplained phenomena in recent years that you've heard about across the country. When he's not creating content for his own YouTube channel, Alien Protocols, check it out, he's volunteering with the homeless and helping his community out in the Bronx right here in New York City. Buddy, I'm so glad I got you. Thanks for beaming in, brother.
My honor, Faust. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, especially someone who understands this stuff. So we can dive in pretty deep, my friend.
Awesome, man. We're going to go far out. I'm excited. Give everyone a little origin story, man. Tell just how you, I know that these things start young, but give everyone an abridged version of how you got into this work and all these crazy things.
Well, for me, it's something I think that in terms of the abilities and talent, I think it's been something that's been since birth, I guess, or it's a genetic or something. I believe I inherited these skills through my mother. She would let me know that, dreams can be prophetic and trust your intuition and your gut. She didn't have a lot of the modern terms that we, talk about now, like gestalts and things like that. But she really reinforced it and said your dreams can, tell the future. And, you should always trust those first feelings, those first sentiments, those first gut instincts. And so that was, I just remember it always. I remember after one time, like the biggest first early experience was maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, something in that range. Her telling me about the dreams being prophetic because I was having dreams and I was noticing things were happening. And so I told her about, I just had a dream then, Mom, where you and my brother were in this bench that we have outside a swing and the chain broke. And she was like, oh, I better watch out or whatever. Can't remember, the words, but within just a very short period of time, day or 2 days, I'm sitting there in the same position. And I have like this, I guess it's like a deja vu from the dream, and the chain breaks, boom, and it falls. And, that's the first real solid memory I have. But, I believe these abilities come through the mom. Oftentimes a lot of high end or a lot of intuitives say this, again and again. And it's not just because moms are so empathetic. There could even be an evolutionary reason for it. You can imagine, that the men are out hunting and the women have to protect the genetic line, and they're depending on everything they have. and you could imagine how the ones with the most intuition could keep the genetic line alive.
Certainly.
So that's a theory, but so that's my origin part of it. I've always worked on it and developed it from an early age. I've realized that it's not something you can talk about with everybody because people make fun of you.
Yeah, well, people don't believe, people don't realize.
Yeah, they don't.
Say,
and it's a subtle thing, and it's a subtle thing that can be developed. But if you don't acknowledge the subtle thing, it doesn't have an opportunity to develop.
No, how could it? You cannot, a seed cannot grow without water. Or sunlight. It needs that kind of attention, right? It's no different.
Absolutely. And it's like all of our senses, it's apparent, even people who are skeptics will say, my grandma always had a great sense of intuition. I don't know how she knew this would happen to me or that would happen to me, but she did. And, I remember my mom at one point saying to me, I'm going off to college.
Yeah. And
she says, drink a lot of cranberry juice. You don't want to get, kidney stones. And I was like, right. Oh, sure, Mom. Kidney stones. Like, a month later, I get kidney stones.
You doubled up on your cranberry juice after that.
Right. And so over time, I developed it more and more. I fiddled around with different aspects of it. One of the deeper aspects of it is that, there's different styles. And, I was never trained at a young age. So I just gravitated towards the normal things that I do and did. And one of them was before going to bed, I would fly in my mind around the neighborhood and the solar system. It's something I still do even.
Yeah.
And that kind of became astral for me. And I remember I don't even remember the age exactly, but I was, younger than 15.
Yeah.
And between like maybe, 12 and 15. And there's this girl, there's a little golf course behind our house, and these little huts that would be all over the course. And I remember seeing a girl that I really liked kissing another boy. And I was upset. And I found out the next day that it was true.
Wow.
So astral was something that I realized, wow, that could really have a deeper, more profound use than just, personal entertainment. So,
what you said, and it doesn't surprise me that you came into these abilities as a child, because my experience with these abilities and my success, that the little success I've had with these abilities has come always when I put myself into a childlike mind state. Whenever I just say, okay, fuck all the technique and fuck everything, just go back to that mentality of knowing anything is possible, and when as soon as I can kind of get back into that childlike mentality, that's when all the things that I've accomplished and all these things have manifested, have come in, and I'm like, wow. And then when you can go and like you said, find out that what you saw is specifically true, then you have validation in the real world that what you did was not a coincidence. It was a deliberate act through consciousness. And so it's like, but it starts with, children have this incredible ability to believe. And, that's why with Uri Geller, all the children can bend the spoon. Everyone else has trouble. The adults are like, this fucking thing. Children are like, whoop, because they're not caught up in here in the mentality of it,
You bring up such a key point. And it's about believing first. And belief has a very structural pathway in the brain. When you are struggling to believe something or trying to understand, it's very much in your conscious mind. But as you believe something, it slips from the conscious mind to your subconscious mind. And a lot of intuitives will tell you, well, the subconscious is the seat of this information. Once you get your busy conscious mind out of the way, the subconscious has this connection to, what is studied, but they're still not certain what it is. This field, this substructure, whatever it is, People call it many different names for thousands of years. They've called it many different names, from the Akashic record to the Lyman to a substructure,
the quantum field, there's so
the
many names, the
oneness, the
divine matrix.
monad.
Yeah.
Yes. And once you can make that connection, the data flows from there. And you brought up like 10 different great points in what you just said. And I've written down the word childlike when I was speaking with a scientist the other day, saying how every time one of these things happens to us or to me, I get this childlike exhilaration, this exuberance. And it's actually before that, you do have to have that belief. You have to have that. A friend of mine who really helped me leap my abilities forward said when we started working together was, we're going to create a no judgment zone here where you can feel like you cannot fail.
Right.
No matter what you do, it's impossible to fail, because in essence, we are all scientists, whatever your occupation, and a scientist never fails. An experiment never fails. Even exculpatory evidence is really valuable to a scientist. Right. So you cannot fail. And I want you to feel comfortable trying something huge that you can fail big, quote, fail big. And so you can achieve the impossible. And then when you do enough stuff and you see these things happen, you realize, impossible only lives in our fears.
Yeah.
And once you get that ability to say impossible out of your conscious mind, your subconscious can really do this incredible stuff. I can get into the technical aspects of my belief system and how it might work, but we don't know. It's definitely physics. It's not woo-woo.
No, and the line between physics and woo-woo continues to blend, and that's what and I'm sure there's always going to be the holdouts and the people who just white knuckle this notion that we live in a material world and that everything can be explained through and here's the thing, I believe that, but I also know that that everything can also be explained the other way too, if that makes sense. So that the things that people dismiss as woo-woo, they're gonna be mathematical one day. You know what I'm saying? They're not right now because we can't correlate, we can't understand them where we are right now. For the most part, a lot of us can experience them, we can talk about them, but they're still very much invisible to us. And so you have people who don't have any perception of those things yet, write it off, but that's gonna catch up, because that's evolution. I think that's my opinion.
It's more than opinion. It's an acute observation. Phenomena has represented historically emerging new science that we don't understand yet. And give you hundreds of examples, but just 200 years ago, there was a bunch of this strange paranormal spiritual phenomena that was mystifying scientists. And a lot of people thought it had its religious origins.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I'll give you a few examples of it. If you take two different pieces of metal, and they used to show this in universities, two different pieces of metal and put it up against a dead frog's leg, the leg would jump and move. And they thought for sure this is some sort of spiritual energy. They also noticed that there's certain animals that had an ability to hit you with a spiritual energy that had a little sting to it, but it also made your muscles move. And they found when people walked across different surfaces and kissed or touched, they would see a tiny little flash of light and they'd feel a little zap. And all of these were indications of an electromagnetic field, and they were all phenomena. And a lot of people had very spiritual perspectives on it until a guy named Volta united this mysterious phenomena into something we call now the electromagnetic field. So, that's ubiquitous, that it's everywhere. And now 200 years later, we can't imagine. We can't even imagine living without the electromagnetic field. So imagine right now we are on the verge of one of those exact same discoveries. And in 200 years from now, imagine how much this could be incorporated into our lives when you look at the electromagnetic field. You can't do anything without some association to the electromagnetic field. But time and time again, Einstein saw Brownian motion, which was this strange way that,
That's right.
these pollens floating in water would have this movement. And time again throughout history, phenomena becomes, the science of tomorrow. But there's always resistors, and people are
Yeah.
like, people literally would not accept Galileo's blatant observation with indisputable facts
I
that,
know. Yeah.
the Earth is not the center of the universe. The
I mean,
universe does not revolve
didn't they
around
kill
Earth.
Galileo for it?
They imprisoned him first.
They put him in prison, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And ironically enough, the man who had seen further than anyone else lost his own sight. He went
Wow.
blind in jail. That's, the universe loves to have wonderful ironies like
Of
that.
course.
And so he went blind. Yeah.
That's crazy. Man, I saw your interview on IMHO Love with Lou Angelwolf and Mike Merberg, I think it was.
Yeah.
And man, I just listening to you talk, I was like, holy shit, I got to talk to this guy. Like, and I obviously I first saw you on Linda Moulton Howe's channel, Earth Files, and then I start like looking you up, but I listened to you talk, and I was like, man, me and this guy, we speak the same language. I got to talk to him. You were talking about, I mean, you said about kid, imagine if we taught our kid, we teach them physical education in school and we don't teach them consciousness education. Like what, I mean, that to me, I say this a lot. That's crazy to me now. It wasn't always, but where I'm sitting right now and my perspective on life, that notion that we don't teach mindfulness to our children and consciousness is crazy. We give them hockey and recess, but not that. And I heard you say that. I'm like, man, me and this guy, we talk the same language. But I always say, can you imagine what society would look like if we had even the slightest bit of this incorporated with our young people? It would be a different world.
It would be a massively different world. And when you understand that empathy, connecting with others, trying to make a connection with other places, times, people, animals, anything, creates this, essentially you get magic abilities, to put it in the most simple ways. And if kids knew that they could get magic abilities from empathizing, we wouldn't have any more school shootings. We wouldn't have so many problems.
No more wars.
Wars and any of that stuff. And it seems frankly stupid to me, because it's like when you're born, the first thing you'd like to have is like a operator's manual. How does this thing work that I have? And a mental education, or however you'd like to call it. Kids have so many thoughts about life and their mind and everything, and you could really structure that for them. And
God.
I have an electroencephalogram, and it allows me to see my different brainwave states.
Mm-hmm.
And I can visually see an output of, multiple different types of brainwave states. And I've learned to spike different brainwaves on command. And these different brainwave states reflect abilities the brain has to be incredibly critical, to be incredibly creative, to be relaxed and in harmony with things around us.
Yes.
And although brainwaves have been known about for quite a while, we don't really use this data at all in a practical sense.
No, we don't even really teach people about them. We certainly don't teach about it in kids who are growing up through grade school, and maybe in high school they may mention it. They may pay it lip service in some kind of biology class, but as far as I know, they certainly didn't when I was in school.
No, and for me, it has incredibly practical purposes. When I need to do something, and my brain state may not be in that space, I can make that my brain waves in the space that I would like them to be to help my current situation. I could be writing and have a stumbling block, and could be at that kind of where I need a muse. Where's my muse? Yeah. And you can put your brain in the state where you're more creative. Or if you need to be very focused and you're doing something delicate, you can bring up those brainwave states and maximize your performance.
It's brainwave entrainment is at the forefront of, my soul brother who started this channel with me he's in Stockholm right now working on the new technology with different companies, and they're doing a documentary, and it's all about, it's basically about brain waves and bringing that kind of education and opportunity for training, becoming a master of all these different brainwave states, and developing kind of gamifying is what that's his dream. He wants to gamify this. He wants to gamify enlightenment, because he's like, everyone is addicted to the technology anyway. Why not just get them where they're going to be anyway? So, I love his passion. And so we talk about it a lot, and I have a lot of people on the show who, are kind of at the forefront of that. But absolutely, it's not a little thing. And in fact, when you're not conscious of it, you can, that people who have chronic pain, people who have different chronic diseases, a lot of times, they don't realize they've spent the last 15 years in a state of high beta, which is a very stressed out brainwave state. I mean, we live in probably the epicenter of it. I don't know how many cities out there. I'm sure there's a few, but where people are kind of, at high beta, like right now, for our listeners, if you're sitting at home and you're just chilling, you're in a low beta right now. You're chilling. If I'm putting you to sleep, well, if me and Buddy are putting you to sleep, then you're slipping from a low beta, probably down. I think you're starting to slip maybe into a theta, or I wouldn't say as far down as an alpha, or certainly not a delta, but because that's really when you're in a deep sleep. Delta's a deep sleep, and then you go through theta. That's the state we dream in most of the time. But all these brainwaves carry each other, right? And when you get to past theta can carry gamma, and gamma is the brainwave that we see in really high level meditators. If you're looking at a EEG of probably, like if Buddy is doing his thing, you probably could look at his brain and you would probably see spikes of gamma when he's remote viewing, or when he's in a channel state. We often see that. It's similar to the brains we see in meditators. So what's going on in the brain that's happening is, if people who eat mushrooms, sometimes you can see that the brain is lit up like a Christmas tree, and you'll see spikes of gamma in there and all kinds of fun things. Not that I'm recommending that you try magic mushrooms, but you should.
The more you learn about this, it just seems to be a never-ending well of incredible things. The Earth, our planet itself, sends out a certain frequency, and they call it the Schumann resonance.
Mm-hmm.
And when you notice that the Schumann resonance is this kind of calming state of brain waves, and then they've discovered that the animals and humans oftentimes reflect the Schumann resonance. There's so many depths to this, and totally. How little it's understood and studied. I have someone who studied it very intensely. I've always wondered, just from my own personal observations with my EEGs, what is this above 100? What is above 100 hertz? I couldn't find any details about it. I found myself able to spike 150, 160. I was like, there's got to be some information out there somewhere. Finally, I ran into and this is recently, a neurologist out of Germany, and he's done tremendous study on the brain and blah, blah, blah. He says, oh, you're talking about lambda. I'm like, what? It's actually named, and there's incredible things behind lambda waves, and practitioners of different things like Wim Hof, who could withstand incredible cold. And Buddhist monks who can take a wet towel and put it over their shoulders and go sit on the cliff of a freezing mountain and steam it away.
Right.
And there's also below 0.5 hertz. There's no name for it. And this is an incredibly low activity state of the brain. So you can imagine calming yourself,
like a hibernation state.
Basically, yeah. And below 0.5 is called epsilon. And epsilon is reflective of a bunch of different things, but also connectivity. And you can imagine, like we were saying earlier, when you make your conscious mind kind of go away, your subconscious mind is the seat of this connectivity, this psychic abilities. And for me, I found a lot of psychic accuracy, and a lot of other things connected with that epsilon brainwave range. So
Yeah,
this is powerful stuff that's so poorly
it is,
understood.
and if you want a practical application of this and the power of your brain waves and your thoughts and your feelings, because that's all within the brain waves and the heart, of course, and the gut. But think of the law of attraction. Okay, the law of attraction. Everyone has heard of it. Some people believe in it. Other people are like, there's no such thing. I feel bad for those people. But I think a lot of people, if you ask them, will tell you that they believe that there's some kind of correlation between what shows up in their life and how they're thinking and feeling. But I don't think that they understand the degree to which those things are connected. But again, science is catching up with what the great sages and mystics have known since they've been around, and I could just refer you to one incredible science experiment that was done by a French researcher, Rene Pioche, right? Rene Pioche demonstrated the power of intention to affect physical matter in 3D. He set up this experiment. I'm going to show you this clip. I don't know if you ever saw this, buddy, but he hatched these baby chicks.
No, I'm not aware of this.
Oh man, you're gonna love this. I'm gonna send you a link to it. But I'll just give everyone a summary. But long story short, he had a random number generator, and he set up a machine, and he hatched these baby chicks. And the first part of it, the chicks were free, but they imprint on the mom, and they bond with the mom and they follow her around. But when he had them imprint, he had them bond with the robot, and the robot was the mother. Let me just read this so I don't totally destroy it. But if the mother isn't there when the chicks hatch, they'll imprint on the first thing they see, right? So chick sees a human. That's why we see them following humans around. We always see these cute little videos of little chicks following dogs around and shit like that. Well, for his study, Pioche built a special type of random event generator. It was a computerized robot that would just turn randomly as it moved around this square arena, when it went right 50% of the time and left 50% of the time. And as a control, he first recorded the robot's path in the arena with no chicks present, right? Then over time, he found that the robot, and I'll show you a diagram of this, we'll put it up. The robot covered most of the arena equally. You see it. It's like it's all over the screen. Next, he exposed the newly hatched chicks to the robot. And as expected, they imprinted on the robot as if it was their mom, and they followed it all over the arena. Now, after the chicks had imprinted on the robot, he removed them from the arena and put them in a cage to one side where they could see the robot but not move toward it. Now, what happened next was fucking mind-blowing, okay? The intention of the baby chicks to be near what they believe to be their mom. In this case, this robot looked like one of those little vacuums that goes around the room, It actually influenced the random movements of the robot. And so it no longer moves all over the arena, but instead remained on one half of the arena closest to the chick.
Interesting experiments showing the power of intention and perception was one reported by a French researcher named Rene Pioche. In his experiments, he built a robot that contained a computerized movement generator that would make the robot move randomly. He then put it into an arena that he built that would track the movements of the robot. As you would expect, the robot would over time cover most of the entire arena through its random movements. But when Rene Pioche hatched baby chicks next to the robot to make the baby chicks think the robot was its mother, and then he placed the baby chicks next to the arena so that they could see the robot, but couldn't move towards it, the intentions of the baby chicks to be close to the robot influenced the random computer movements and caused the robot to move only in the half of the arena closest to the baby chicks. Think about that. If the intentions and perceptions of baby chicks can influence the behavior of a randomized computer robot in its environment.
Yeah, WTF.
And that's a baby chick. That's and I know this, buddy, because I've heard you talk about random number generators. People don't realize the power of their thoughts. see that shelf back there, man?
Yeah.
Those are graded comic books. Okay. The top half of that shelf is filled with some of the most sought after comic books that you any collector could want. And I'll tell you exactly how I got them. I didn't
You
pay for
shouldn't
them.
say that on the air. By the way, seriously, people are evil out there.
Well, but it's pretty well known in the community. You know, I won them. I won them in raffles. You know, and I always tell people, I'm like, baby chicks. They laugh at me, and I'm like, baby chicks, man. Because I mean, I would like one of the ones I bought. I think I spent $200 on tickets. I think it was like a $36,000 book. There was something like 300 and I don't know, $100. Like there was a lot of spots, and I hit it, and I knew I was going to hit it. And then once you start hitting it and winning, it's like, oh, I remember how to do this. You just kind of get a feeling when you're going to do it again. And I started winning a lot of books, you know, and then I would win so many books that I would just raffle them right back to the community and use the money to buy other books. And so I've been collecting since I was a kid, but I started collecting grading comics when I started to win them in raffles. And it's just funny, your intentions can affect your reality. And that is a fact. It's really hard to dispute, I think.
That's stunning about the chickens, the baby chicks. That's such a wonderful example. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, it's great. It's cool.
Yeah, there's no doubt we have an ability to affect our environment. And you can see, even with a baby chick, how that could be evolutionarily how we could survive. You know, any extra little thing we could have in order to survive this, cold, incredibly entropic universe. Our universe is very entropic, which means it's given to have more destructive it's given to more chaos than order, and it leans towards constantly more and more chaos. And human beings and life forms are incredibly ordered. We have fought the entropy. We've taken matter and championed it away from the entropy to create something so incredibly ordered that it creates more order and more order and more order. And it's such a mystical reality. And every little thing a life form could have to sustain itself against this, incredible, ever-present force is absolutely stunning. When you really think about how much odds are against a life form and how ordered a life form is. Yeah. And you also wonder, you can get really deep down this rabbit hole, but life and life forms, we all have a certain ability to react to our environment and manipulate our environment to our benefit. We react to it, and it can react to us. And it can be as simple as a plant leaning towards the sun, tilting its leaves towards the sun, to as complex as me putting a solar panel to get that same energy on my roof. This stuff just gets so intense.
It's the nature of relationship, right? It's the nature of, we live in a 3-dimensional reality. Okay. I think that what comes with that and this experience are these bodies, right? This incredible human technology, this amazing, I love the way you phrased it, this kind of phenomenon which has found a way to become coherent in the midst of the chaos that is infinity, right? And we know when we look out that there's a lot more space than there is anything else, right? But time and space are linked. I mean, and we experience time, in my opinion, because we're wearing these dense bodies, right? And some are denser than others, but these senses that come with these bodies plug us into time and space. And so I always tell my kids, I'm like, listen, if you understand anything about time and space, just understand that in order for me to get from my room to your room, I have to walk through space. That's time. You know what I'm saying? It's that simple. And though they look at me and they shake their heads, and then I ask them later and they're like, I don't know. But my point is, there's also a part of us, this immortal part of us. Some people call it a soul, you call it a spirit, the part that is seated before thought, the part that's plugged in, the part that can, venture out at night and see things that the body couldn't possibly be witnessing. That part is plugged into everything. That part is that's plugged into the immortal, right? I think that people who come into these abilities, they just realize that, and they begin to practice and get better at accessing those abilities. Because I agree with what I've heard you say more than once, buddy, that we all have these capacities. We have an innate ability as humans to use these abilities, but not everybody even is aware that they have the ability, and most people don't know how to cultivate it and or practice it. So it's so cool. I became, once I came into a daily meditative practice and started really kind of exploring, it's just fun for me. That's why I do it. If I'm bored at night, instead of like playing video games or watching a show that's going to give me anxiety anyway, I'll just I'll put my headphones on and I'll put on like the Gateway series from the Monroe Institute, and I'll just practice. I'll just play around, you know what I mean? See what happens and then find out. That's, you know what I mean? Like to me, that's more thrilling these days than a Netflix show.
We're so uneducated about our own abilities. We're so uneducated about the real world. We open the front door, every day and we walk out into this fucking unbelievable universe. We're on this planet spinning, and I can go through all those analogies, and it's so from the largest structures to the tiniest structures to, then subtleties that are important though, to, a homeless person right next to you, to, a fire at a building 2 doors down. But instead of having any real sense of this, we kind of, go and we get our, coffee and go stumble to work, and of course we have to do these things. We have to, but so much of our lives, we are taught about, me, how am I correlating to this? How am I correlating to that? How does my breath, smell? How does my hair look?
Yeah.
How do I, I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. It's like, it's me. Yeah. And technology nowadays, especially modern technology, social media, is all about me. And it's the complete opposite of these abilities and these skills. Because what really matters is you. And what really matters is, our planet and our environment.
Yeah.
And all these things. And before you know it, you're on a planet that has, almost no rainforest left. You can't pull a fish out of the ocean has some level of poison. And
it's because we're taught wrong, and then we continue to teach wrong. You're absolutely right. You fucking hit the nail right on the head.
Maybe at some point, I've been involved with a lot of different groups, moving through this process, and it used to be very secretive for me. I was a stand-up comedian, and I loved comedy, and I still do. But at the same time I was doing comedy, I was working with different groups and scientists, and I couldn't let one spill over into the other.
Yeah.
You can imagine telling, a bunch of top comedians, I'm psychic. I can see distant places, and I can manipulate objects at a distance. And it was very bifurcated. And nowadays, anyone who practices this stuff, we have to maintain that bifurcation, because there's just so many people you cannot speak to about this. They're very hostile. I have people now that are actually not just don't believe, but are hostile against me just because of their own personal beliefs. They may have religious beliefs that are, misplaced. And I've been blessed to work with, incredible researchers and been tested in laboratories on all sorts of different machines and proven time and time again the ability to affect all sorts of different things, not just locally, but non-locally. You spoke briefly of the Monroe Institute and the Gateway series. Monroe Institute is absolutely fabulous. There's several, institutes that explore this stuff, Rhine and so forth. But I worked with Dr. Gallenberger in Vegas on psychokinesis.
Oh, cool.
Showed, what an incredible guy. And slot machines and Vegas itself is the most incredible random number generation facility there is, and you can really get a chance to explore your abilities. And in one brief little trip turned $300 into $3,500, which at the end ended up being, the profit was 32.
Right.
And that was on craps, which I'd never played before, and roulette, and a couple of slot machines. And I have some great stories of when, I was a stand-up comic and would perform at different casinos, where I would just go up to a slot machine or just put money on a roulette or whatever. Just at the last minute, I was drunk and not connected to the universe, very much. I was very much other places in my mind, being drunk, and boom, it was like I couldn't help but win. And sometimes when you care the least is when you're the most connected. And that, once again, that's the conscious mind being gone and the subconscious making the connection. To me, so much of it is about that subconscious mind having a connection to everything. And it boils down to me it's like two tuning forks. I say this again and again. You empathize with something, you try and make a connection with it, have an understanding of it. And that's this first connection that happens, and that's data. Mm-hmm. And it's like the tuning fork has this incredible distance that's almost insurmountable in the world of physics. But if it hits the right frequency, it can hit this magical place of harmony where it can pick up the data and the information from it and it from it, and they're in resonance. And love, like your shirt, and empathy and resonance are all the same thing, because you're making a connection to something else. You're wanting to understand it. You respect it. You want to understand and feel its subtleties, and you appreciate it. In a sense,
you become one with it. You do. You become one with it. You begin to vibrate with it. That is what love is. That's what love making is about. In whatever form it comes in. It's an incredible thing, and it's a shame to me that most people in society don't realize how much there is to explore, how much joy is there to explore, while you're in the process of learning about things. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. And it's the power of love.
Yeah.
This ability is transferring energy across what was previously an insurmountable barrier. And that ability, that connection is the first step, actually. That's data. Data is being transformed between the two of them. Then now the data and this connection turns into the ability to physically affect each other. The baby chicks were so connected with mother Roomba robot.
Yeah.
They were in harmony that they were able to use that connection to physically manifest their desires.
And that it affected their reality. They got what they loved. They got what they wanted. It started to happen. Then it started to happen over and over again. And eventually that robot forgot there was another half of the room. It just stayed close to them. And that made them feel better, which is incredible. They're baby chicks. But what's crazy to me, buddy, is the fact that remote viewing is a term coined, I think Russell Targ, was he the one that coined it?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that they just decided, he was observing the people he was having in. He had some incredible people in, Uri Geller included, and they were putting a name to what they were seeing that these guys could do. It's it just boggles my mind that remote viewing came into the consciousness for the most part of Americans, particularly because of the attempt to weaponize it, or at least use it in that setting, right? And the organization that brought in Yuri was looking to use it in a, hoping to use it. And I'm just, we all know that it's still being used, in by certain countries for different things, and that it was definitely used during the Cold War. And so I'm like thinking,
Everyone's still using it.
That's what I'm saying. Everyone is still using it because it's effective. But that's like, my God, that's like the most unimaginable way, and God, like no fun. I mean, like, sure, it's fun to test your abilities, but how many things could you be using this ability for? And we have, and like people are like using it to look at, like, for missiles. And it's that talk about confused humanity. So confused. It's like,
Already just so screwed. And you know what? I think these are coming to the surface now for a really important reason. We need to teach these to our kids because we have we've mortgaged our planet, and we have heaped upon our children, our grandchildren, and their children. We have heaped upon them devastation, destruction, suffering. I don't say these things to be, dramatic or morose. The reality is that you can look at just population growth versus finite resources. And there comes a point where the gravy train stops, and the momentum that has been built, everything on the gravy train goes wham. And an apocalypse doesn't have to happen in one day. An apocalypse can be a slow manifestation of multiple problems converging.
That's exactly what's happening.
Bad luck. And in the future, our kids and grandkids are going to need every ounce of ability to survive these horrors. And they really are horrors.
I mean, just
that's why I think.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. And you're right. Absolutely, it's vital, and it's going to make the difference. I think that, and that's we go the way of the grays, this ability and this capacity for empathy and an integrative approach to life and nature is going to make the difference on whether we make it this go around as a species or not. That's what I believe, but you hit the nail on the head too.
And when you look at society now, we're more self-indulgent than we've ever been.
Yeah.
When the irony is, we think going inwards and worrying about me gives me power, when the opposite is actually the truth. If you really want power and you want, all these, so many things that we become selfish about, you're actually not being selfish. You're being stupid. You've cut yourself off from the universe. You've cut yourself off from knowledge. You've cut yourself off from all these other things. Because what really matters isn't me. What really matters is you, Faust. What matters is the person next to you. And in that, there's so much knowledge and ability. We were talking before about what kids could do with this. If you're resonating, if you're empathizing with the kid next to you, we've become so much better at everything. I think we would have better dancers, we'd have better architects, we'd have better doctors, we'd have better everything if we had these kind of no judgment zones where they couldn't fail. Kids are so much pressure on kids nowadays. With society and all these different medias, and they have to look this way and that way, and the breath has to be perfect, and I'll be in a billion different things. And
all for what? For what? To make $1. Well, all that pressure, and it's not even for anything important. It's for material gain. Is our society has set up this construct, which is such a failed model. Everything about it is failing. I mean, look around. It's not working. Okay, it's competition to death, and it's a shame. We have a beautiful planet. It's got more than enough for everybody, but we haven't figured out how to use what we got. We just keep exploiting. It's like there's a war going on right now, and in both countries, people are suffering, people are hungry. They're spending billions. They will spend billions more to fix the destruction they've caused, and yet they won't mobilize to feed the hungry. This is a planet of confused people, and it's a shame. But it boggles my mind, because I saw a pretty incredible video of that you did, and I know that it was, I think it was back in early January, that Linda Moulton Howe, who I have the utmost respect for. She's one of the premier. She's an OG in the game of investigative journalism, particularly
She really is.
in the field of UFO and everything paranormal and extraordinary. She really is. She's been around a long time. She's an award-winning, huge integrity, right? And so I saw she had you remote view. This is so, and you can call this a quote coincidence, but I don't believe in those things anymore. She asked you to remote view Ukraine back in early January. Now, listen, it's easy right now to say, oh, well, everybody saw the war coming. That's bullshit. Okay. I didn't see the war coming. I asked a lot of people. Coincidentally, I asked a lot of people what they thought, because I was worried that Russia was going to do something stupid. So I was trying to soothe my own fears that Russia was going to start this fucking war. And I asked a bunch of people. I mean, I asked my tattoo artist, who I have, profound respect for. I love him. I asked, whoever I was conversing with, I'd ask, and all of them, like, don't worry about it. They've been doing this. Nothing's going to happen. He's been barking like this for years. He ain't going to attack now. But Linda asked you to remote view Ukraine, and you saw an attack. You saw Putin going in there, and you actually documented it. And I'm going to show everyone a little bit of the video you made of it, which lays out exactly what you saw, because not only were you accurate with that, but you even saw Putin going in, and that on that wide scale that he did, that kind of surprised everyone. And I don't think a lot of people thought that he was going to launch a full out fucking invasion the way he has, but you saw it, and you documented it pretty well over a month. Almost a full month and a half, 2 months before it actually happened.
And welcome back to Alien Protocols. Back January 21st, I did a remote viewing for Linda. She asked me to do a viewing on the Ukraine, and the question was whether Putin would attack sometime between now and 2024. That was the question. I got my target number, and a lot of this has come true already, and it's pretty amazing. You can see this on her channel from a few weeks ago. Let's just go over some of the highlight points. There was a naval incident already that happened. There's the border incident that happened for a few days now, the lobbying back and forth of the border, and the hospital in Donetsk was already hit. So that is pretty amazing. And this is what I put for the Russian attack order. 1, from here into Donetsk. This just makes me sad. 2, I have up there with the arrow pointing towards Kiev. And last I heard today, it's hard to trust everything you hear in the news in the middle of a war, because things, teeter and change, and you hear stuff that isn't true. But I heard that there was some shelling in Kiev already, and so 2, that border has opened up, going towards Kiev. Number 3 is down here, and that's Crimea, the occupied Crimea, and Russia just has another front there, even though to have all this land and bordering Ukraine is a very powerful position to be in. So let's just look at some of the data here, and you'll see a lot of it is really surprisingly correct. Swarm of cold-hearted war. Putin strikes southeast, then the northeast, after border incidents. There's a false, the only thing that hasn't happened yet is this false flag thing. I wrote timelines are fluttering. Most likely, within the next 6 months, I get even clearer. In a minute, this year, Russia moves. Soon. Is it 5 weeks yet? Oh no. Soon, such civilian suffering. You know, it's really hard to understand. You can hear those words, but there's so much suffering.
So that's a testament to your abilities,
was-
buddy. That's incredible.
I think it's a testament to the ability we all have. And it was really interesting. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I drew a map and I drew the attack locations and the order in which they would take place in, and a bunch of different events that would happen. And I said, the Southeast, I mentioned towns and names. And of course, maybe, if I was a military strategist and had studied the Ukraine and Russia and I didn't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I just went with the gestalts that came in. And I mentioned Donetsk, or whatever the town is there in the Southeast. Forgive me for not remembering the name.
Yeah.
Southeast first, and then the Northeast, and then from Crimea would be number 3. I mentioned a bunch of hallmarks of different events. There's even a secret, something that I only told Linda about, and even that has proven to be true.
Wow.
And all these specific incidents that I said would happen, this hospital being hit, blah, 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 all these different incidents. And the last one that I was kind of waiting to see if it came true or not was whether this bridge in Crimea would be destroyed or not. And a few days ago, I was like, maybe I should check the internet to see if it got destroyed. And I just didn't realize it. And it did.
Wow.
Which is not surprising. In wars, hospitals are going to be hit, bridges are going to be blown up.
Well, I mean, it's fucking 2022 though, buddy. It's not every day where you're like, they did that. The bastards, they went after the hospital. It is still, I think, when's the last time someone bombed a fucking hospital? Probably the United States by accident, not that long ago, and we never heard about it. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's still, I think, incredible for you to have, forecasted the way that you have. And again, it's like, you keep talking about it, and I want to revisit it again, because it's like, you got to understand that all this happens before the mind can get in the way. So like, buddy, you put yourself into whatever state you needed to, and then you allowed whatever came in to come in, and you didn't fucking, mentally manipulate, fuck with it. You just let it come through, and you wrote it down, right? Like, and then you let it stand on its own, but you didn't like it didn't get filtered through the conscious brain, right? Is my question.
Yeah. You try not to let the conscious mind come in and disturb it. You learn from a bunch of techniques and methods how to silence your conscious mind. And we were a little late today recording because I hadn't slept well in the past few nights. I've been working super late on so many different, viewings for people, missing kids and groups calling in an agency and this, that, and the other. And I want to do the very best I can, when a kid's life is at stake, or, so my conscious mind has been so, and my unconscious mind have been so over tapped. But, you realize in all of this stuff, how blessed we are.
Yeah.
And how it all comes down to the same lesson over and over again. And it's that empathy and that love and that connection. And if you still like Nagarjuna said 2,000 years ago, I think it was, if you still your mind like the surface of a lake, you can reflect the universe. And, they've known about these abilities for a long time. In Vedic traditions, they called these siddhis, siddhis. And these were abilities that you would gain if you essentially walked the path of virtue, which was what the Buddhists call it. And in the Patanjali, it says very specifically, and this is 2,000 years ago as well, too. It says on the path of something to the effect of, on the path of virtue, you'll gain amazing abilities. You will see distant places. You will gain the ability to affect items at a distance. You will have the ability to diagnose.
Sounds like the cities. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Get the ability to diagnose and heal injuries. But then it goes further with some more further warnings. And it says, but if you get distracted, do not get distracted by these. These are only vistas. These are only, these are distractions on the path of virtue. So it's kind of like, you have a journey you want to go on, but along the way, as you're walking, you're like, wow, that's a beautiful waterfall. And you end up walking off the path and,
Yeah.
So I really try, even though I'm amazed and I'm thrilled and I'm so deeply thankful and humbled by the growth of these abilities, how they get bigger and bigger and more extraordinary and more extraordinary. I try not to get too distracted by them and try to just keep on the path and doing the right thing and try to help others as much as I can. And it's not easy. It's not easy, especially in the cold. A lot of people out there are depressed now. And a lot of people who are like us, Faust, who are empathetic, caring, loving people who care about others.
Yeah.
And we're in and I want to let them know, if anyone's listening who feels that way, that you're actually normal.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you. If you are depressed in a society that is sociopathic and only cares about themselves and is materialistic and wages war and judges you by your appearance as opposed to the caliber of your character, that prizes money above all these things. If you're not depressed, something is wrong with you.
That's right.
If you are depressed, that means you are empathetic. You're not a sociopath. You've been gifted with the ability to resonate with the things around you, and you're observant, and it's understandable that you feel that way. It's totally it's a hallmark.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a hallmark of being normal. And,
what I think some people don't realize is, like, you are a giant, like you're a million satellites in one body, right? And you think that you're walking along the street and you think you're having all these incredible individual thoughts, but the truth is your mind is receiving a lot from its environment and from the consciousness of its family, its human family. And so, it's a lot of times I think that to be able to step back and become the observer of the feelings and thoughts that we're having, you start to realize that, it's very possible that I'm feeling and picking up on a lot of what is happening right now. And that these thoughts that I'm having, they're not just mine. I'm experiencing them, but I can step back from them. I can quiet my mind. Another wonderful advantage to learning to quiet the mind, is this peace that you find. And living in New York City, it's challenging, as you know, buddy. And I, you learn to do this. And I also, I also learn to question, sometimes when I'm hit with a strong feeling or thought, I'm like, is that mine? It's like, because if I know it feels like mine, but where the hell did it come from?
No, that's a really key point. I've wondered since a kid, what controls the thoughts that come to my mind when it does come to my mind? Am I just this evolutionary machine that's regurgitating these thoughts? There's some really fascinating speculations about that.
Yeah.
Very profound question you just asked.
Yeah. And I just put that out there for people who, it's easy. The ego will have you think that, it's all yours, all of it, and it's just not true. It's, everything from that great weight you feel, it's not all yours, and you're never truly alone, That's
it brings up scientists believe in something called determinism. It's you can't find a solution to the universe. Everything that happens now is based on a series of previous actions that happened.
Yeah.
And the same is true with the future. So you wonder, do I have any free will? Do I have any control in this? Some people say, well, actually, buddy, quantum physics allows you to have free will. It's like, actually, no, quantum physics doesn't allow any choices. It has random things that happen, and randomness is not free choice, even at best. So then I pondered very deeply, what would be the purpose of this universe if I don't have the ability to affect anything, if I don't have an ability to make choices, what would the purpose of this universe be? And the only thing I could think of is to experience.
Mm-hmm.
That we are here to experience all these different perspectives. It's the universe experiencing itself.
That's right.
But these abilities, this is a very deep, and powerful subject.
Do you, I'm sure you work with people who have a thirst for this knowledge, and I'm sure you get asked to use it to help people a lot. But, you know, is there any, do you work with people? Do you try to help people learn different techniques? Is that something you do?
Yeah. A lot of my time is helping people to improve. I prefer to do it one-on-one. You know, making the videos is fine, but when you connect with people and work with them, you create the no judgment zones for them. They can. It's better to work with someone else, with a person rather than a machine. You really get the opportunity to really experiment. And so I don't call it students because we're both simultaneously, you know, learning. A lot of my time is, you know, filled with that, and a lot of people don't have any resources. So it's my pleasure and my honor.
Cool, man. Yeah, you know, and I just know that you can learn a lot from, you know, even a video. You know, I remember a few different times I've listened to Dr. Greer talk about how he remote views for hours, you know, and you know, you take it all in, and then you play with it on your own. So, you know, there's a lot to be learned. People always want to kind of disparage YouTube, and like, oh, you know, the YouTube expert, and you're like, no, but there's a lot of knowledge on YouTube that you can gain. Don't let people, you know, disparage you or shame you into thinking that your curiosity is, you know, somehow not valid, you know. And wherever you can go, that's your library. You know, some people, you know, I mean, no one goes to the library anymore, but people will go on YouTube and look for information. That's a library. So,
and it's a starting point. It's an education point. And then from there, you can go to the next step personally. So I teach people everything from the healing arts to, you know, as complicated stuff as, you know, psychokinesis, and there's several different ways of viewing, not just, you know, control remote viewing. There's not just astral. There's, you know, like 20 different individual methods, and different methods are useful for different, I found, for different types of targets. If I know someone is looking for an object in their apartment, I'm like, oh, I know which method I'll use. Or if I'm looking to get as much information about the environment at a location, sometimes I'll be asked by different, you know, people and groups, stuff like that. And I know the different techniques. I'll use astral for that because it's very multisensory and very synesthetic. And I'm just so lucky.
It's fascinating. I had no idea. I mean, I guess you really get more familiar with the nuances the more you do it. You know, of course, that makes perfect sense to me. But I never thought about that. And I'm always like, you know, because when I was playing around with these abilities, like I wanted to see if I could, if I could remote view my wife, right? And so I was about 5 blocks away, and I just like finished a book, and I was watching Dr. Greer. I just finished his like 3-hour lecture on remote viewing, and I was like, I was like, I'm gonna go take a walk. I'm gonna get a massage, and I'm sore from working out anyway. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna try this, you know. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, just do it. And so I put myself in that state, and I put myself in, and you know, I think it's easier to connect when if it's someone you love, you know. Already, I think there's a stronger connection there. It's
absolutely,
you know. And so I came, and I could see my wife, and I could see her in the bath, and we have a tub in our bathroom, and I'm like, dude, she goes in the tub, and then of course the chatter comes in. It's like, yeah, dude, she goes in the tub every night. Okay, Mr. Remote Viewer. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, well, how is she sitting? Where are the details? And so I could see how she was sitting. I could see, and then I was like, what is she watching? What is she? Because I can see she has her iPad. And so I was like, that's the test. That's the test. What is she watching? And so I got closer, and I could see she was watching like this woman on a screen who was like sitting on a chair like a throne. I'm like, and then I was like, dude, she's not watching anything like that. She watches nothing like that. Like, and I was like, oh, whatever. I was like, but I got a good look at it, right? So I came home, I know, and she's like, what? I'm like, don't say anything to me. Hold on. I was like, were you in the tub? And she's like, yeah. I was like, were you sitting like with your feet towards the window? And she's like, yeah. I was like, were you laughing? She's like, I don't know. I was like, what were you watching? I was like, don't tell me. I was like, I was trying to remote view you. And I was like, I saw this woman sitting in the middle of a room in a chair. And she was like, I don't think I was like, I was like, what? She was like, oh my God. she was watching. I guess she never watches this. It was like, I think it's Wendy Williams' show. And Wendy Williams apparently just fucking sits there, and she's the centerpiece of the whole thing. And she just talks. And she was like, I was watching Wendy Williams. I never watch Wendy Williams. And she was like, and I was like, does she just fucking sit there and talk? She was like, yeah, but if you tell anyone I was watching her, I'll kill you. Oh my God. I was like, I'm fucking telling everybody. And she was like, no, she's really going to kill me since I said it on the podcast. But I was like, yes. I was so excited, and then she was so embarrassed. I was like, I don't know who Wendy Williams is. You'd be embarrassed for me. Yeah.
The level of detail of stuff that you can get is just, it's stunning.
Yeah.
It's stunning. And time again, I've been blessed enough to be in a situation where I've been able to help someone. Early on, you just develop your skills and you wonder, is this ever going to be helpful? Is this just some sort of kind of wacky parlor trick that I can show people, but it has no useful value? And I really wanted to have value. I wanted it to have value. And of course, it has value in being able to teach others it and give them that great sense of satisfaction. And if there's tremendous value in healing, probably most of my work is in healing. And there's nothing more wonderful than helping to reduce other people's suffering.
Yeah. No, it's not a little thing, yeah.
No, it gets me very emotional too, because, we are this life, there's a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are conditionally in certain situations and environments that they've got no control over. If this really is a deterministic universe without free will, they really don't have any control.
Yeah.
And the ability to help and heal people, even if it's, there's all the different things you say to yourself. Well, it could be psychosomatic. You got to give the credit to God anyway, since I'm no,
that's
superhero.
Right. I mean, in the end, that's who gets the credit either way. So
really has to. My background, I kind of got connected to a scientist early on, and that scientist said, oh, wow, this is interesting. I'm going to connect you to another scientist. Another scientist connected me to this scientist. And that one's connected me to this person who used to be the head of this group or agency. And they got bounced around, and everyone tests you, and everyone wants to know firsthand. They want to experience it firsthand. And once you start going down this rabbit hole, once you start accessing this other sense and these other abilities, wonderful, wonderful things start happening all around you. You get more and more of these incredibly bizarre glitch in the matrix moments.
Yeah.
Where incredibly bizarre things will happen and you have no rational explanation for it.
Yeah.
You'll be able to help people and see details and do things. And it's so freaking cool. I'm stunned that society doesn't do this more. I'm staggered that we don't teach our children this from, 5 years old and up.
Agreed.
I've
You know,
demonstrated the ability to affect, not only see things at a distance at a very high level of detail, but affect things at a distance. I've been able to bend metal. There's plenty of people who see me bend metal without touching,
yeah,
because as much as Uri Geller is prized as one of these examples, he was really wildly talented early
yeah.
on, but he would mix
I
magic.
know. I fucking just had this debate with my one of my buddies who he works on the channel with me. His name is Nick, and and he had video of Yuri, and I'm like, look, I tried to explain to him that Yuri's a human being and that he has incredible abilities, but he's a human being, and that sometimes it's not like a switch that you can turn on and off. And sometimes you're not feeling it. And I was like, but Yuri learned to do it both ways. He would, he had the magician's ability to use a kind of sleight of hand and get that thing. He would use pressure, and you could see him do it in some of the videos. And I was like, Nick, that doesn't mean that he's a fraud in the rest of what he could do. And we had this big debate because he had this video, and I was like, dude, just look at what he did when he was at Stanford. You know what I mean? Like, the odds of him being able to do some of those things were trillions to one. I was like, you can't. And why would the CIA, who he didn't even know was part of what was happening, why would they set him up? He's not American anyway. So anyway, but it's, yeah, I'm with you 100%.
I think an interesting thing about Uri also is his abilities, just his esoteric abilities, plummeted very quickly after the SRI days. And maybe it's because you have this self-conscious, subconscious kind of censor in your mind, or a little judge that you just self-judgment, and you start to lose those abilities. And he has, to a large degree, lost so much of those incredible abilities because of self-doubt. And I also believe because of, moral failings. I used to have some lively banter with him back and forth. And one on Twitter, he was saying that this was during Brexit. He was saying he was sending messages to Theresa May saying, I'm an expert at remote influence, and I've been studied and prized by agencies. And I'm going to use, I'm going to use my ability of remote influence to prevent you from voting for Brexit. And I sent him a message saying, that is such a terrible way to represent these abilities. And to children, it just seems it's so immoral.
He sold out, definitely. I mean, you look at some of his tweets, I'm like, dude, like, when did you do what? Why did you do that? Like, what are you saying? What are you saying? What are you getting involved in? Sometimes I'm aghast at, like, why would you, did someone take over your Twitter account? Are you really getting involved in, like
his ego? He's become so incredibly self-indulgent. And I think his lack of ability has fueled his self-indulgence. His ability fueled his self-indulgence, but that self-indulgence undermines his ability.
Yeah.
So I sent him a message saying, you are going to fail at this remote influence attempt because it's immoral. It'll be easy to defeat that kind of thinking. It's wrong. And time again, he says these things. They're just terrible.
That too.
He was
recent years.
He was wrong too, because she ended up voting for, Brexit, or like 5 times in a row. So he failed like 5 times in a row. And with bending metals and stuff, I specifically, and other objects, they talk about it in the Patanjali, the ability to, with them, it was affect wood and melt stone and things like that. But I specifically said, I'm not going to do utensils. At one point, I started to, because that's where, you first hear about these things. And then I said, I'm going to start doing no touch metal bending. That way there's actually no physical touch of the object.
Yeah.
And I started doing screwdrivers, and that's a much better way for people to work on this stuff, is to work on screwdrivers. And I learned about this from a guy named Jean-Pierre Girard out of France, who was tested, and they had him bend metal rods without touching them, and he'd wave his hand over it like this.
Wow.
And the first time I really tried to do metal bending was based on watching him. And he said a few things that just really were the key to me being successful. Is most people stop after 5 minutes and they'll never try it again. The rare person who goes maybe 10 minutes and will maybe try it a few times within their life, but very few people are consistently trying and are willing to go an hour the first time. And I was like, you know what? I'm willing to go a freaking hour.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the anomaly.
Yeah. And before you know it, you start bending metal. Whoa.
Yeah. And that's the thing, dude. It's like people are like, I can't do it. And they throw, if when you learn to ski, did you try it and say, I can't do it? I mean, you would have never learned to ski if you, it's like when it comes to these things, we immediately dismiss it if we can't do it right away. And that's the temptation, but you keep going with it like you did. I mean, that's so cool. It's awesome to hear.
And everything you have to try once for the first time, especially in all these esoteric arts, you have to give it a try once. And if you have one of those no judgment zones with somebody and you really feel that way and you get this social pressure thing off your back, you can try all sorts of wonderful things for the first time and succeed and do them. And I'd like to try some of those with you, Faust. I think
that'd be awesome.
You have the right disposition mentally. And I think you might just discover wonderful things. And those wonderful things you can teach to others around you. You have a great presence. You've got a great natural earnestness and personality. And you're doing this mass media stuff. And I think you can really make a difference and impact. You bring this integrity and incisiveness to the subject. And it desperately needs it.
Thank you.
So much fluffery out there on this stuff. And misinformation.
Yeah.
People who are not versed and know who the founders are, what it's been used for. And there's a million cool stories I want to share with you. One really quickly is you're oftentimes surprised by different events and things that happen. And as you were talking about your wife, Lance Munguia is an incredible guy who has done a bunch of interview shows, and he became a documentary and film director. He directed Six String Samurai, and he just did the incredible documentary on these abilities and the remote viewing program with the CIA called Third Eye Spies.
Oh, Third Eye Spies. Okay, cool. I'm gonna check it out.
It's an incredible documentary. You have to watch that documentary. It just talks about the origins. It has so much of the footage and just incredible stories and the pictures and drawings from the different intuitives in the act of doing these things. And so at one point, Lance and a scientist who I'm not going to bring up his name, but he works for a very well-known group, and they were testing me. They tested me 3 times in a row, not the same day, but just 3 consecutive different days. They would surprise me with the test, and that part of the nature of it was getting surprised. I'm slouching more and more. I'm getting more and more.
It's like that movie, The Bone Collector, with Denzel Washington, when he's in bed, though. Yeah.
Part of the magic that we discovered was surprising me when I didn't have an advanced warning of it. We would have much better results because I'd get nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, Lance Munguia and the scientists are watching me. And so one of it was doing an outbounder. And I started getting all this data and this information. It was really weird. And so at the end of the session, they're like, you know what, let me tell you how you did. It's tomorrow. We need to talk for a second and then we'll get back to you. And I was like, oh no, I fucked up. I screwed up. I must have done bad or something. I finally found out that I ended up doing a double outbounder. I was describing what they were both doing.
Yeah.
But only things that were identical that both of them had connected. So it's incredibly hard to explain, but basically, if they were both simultaneously next to a large square box that had this, that, and the other, it would I was describing those elements. So I was describing like elements that they're both experiencing simultaneously. And one of the elements was, right now, your wife is drinking something, a red liquid out of her right hand. Yeah. So I got a gestalt that both, I got a gestalt that someone is drinking, a female wife is drinking the red liquid out of the right hand. So that was the liquid I said. And then later on, they came back and said, you were describing things that both of us were experiencing simultaneously, or that both of us had around us simultaneously. And one of them was both wives were drinking a red liquid out of the right hand at the exact same time.
Wow,
How
great.
freaking weird is that? You can get the weirdest details.
Yeah.
I did it was a control remote viewing for this guy in Germany, and about a target, trying to get information about a specific target. And I knew that the target was a person. And I said, this person has polythelia. And I don't know why that jumped out of me.
What's polythelia?
Is having 3 nipples.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know that at all.
Wow. I don't know where the word origin comes, except for the poly part means multiple.
But, I know that, yeah.
How would I know that someone had 3 nipples? I mean, it's the most freaking obscure detail.
Yeah, that's
these
crazy.
Skills are all teachable. These skills may not have a ceiling.
Yeah.
Meaning what's not possible. There may not be a what's not possible.
Right.
You know, impossible might just be exactly what I think it is, just something that lives in our fears.
Right. And no, I love that. And I agree with you, because I think that's that part of us that is kind of that little piece of us that is our direct lineage, and you know, our individuation of God, you know, that's what makes it endless, or I should say boundless, you know. That's what connects us to everything, and that's infinity. And so, you know, I think the only thing that we're limited in is our imagination. Our abilities can go far beyond, you know, that scope. But you know, we have to operate in the instruments that we've been given at this time. And right now, I still do believe what you're saying. I do believe that, you know, we very well may stumble into something that, you know, we just can't understand. But it's not that it's not understandable. It's just that it's so far out, not to use my title in my but that it's so far out, you know, that we can understand it where we're at. But that's a perspective issue. That's not an ability issue.
You know, I think it's so cool and so fascinating that there are these never-ending, gigantic mysteries. You know, human beings have tenacious minds, and we're very clever, and we, you know, have deep insights. But this universe, God has created a place for us that has never-ending, massive, major mysteries.
I know.
And Lance Munguia brought up something really cool, a really cool notion to me. At the time, I was really deeply involved in, I go through cycles. What I try to do is explore different aspects and practice different aspects of the esoteric, and then move on to another one and not stay stagnant and just stay in one. So I'll go from CE5 contact procedures to psychokinesis to healing, you know, and that way I never reach plateaus. I'm finding deeper and deeper
and you
layers.
keep them interested, you keep them fired up for you, you know.
Yes. And so I had this experience with the head of an aerospace company. I speak about it on my channel, where I'm parked next to Galileo Park, and he notices, and it, you know, an alien, I guess you'll call it. He says, "Is that an alien?" Anyway, we had this being that knew our names, this little dude. We can have a whole episode just on explaining.
Yeah, we'll have to. We're gonna have to.
We have to, because that is. I don't speak about it too much because it's just.
People so call you crazy, yeah.
But Lance Munguia after hearing about the story, it's like, did you ever consider the fact that maybe you made him? That is from your mind, you constructed him. It could have been a tulpa, and a tulpa in Buddhist tradition is little beings that are created with the mind. And I just kind of went, huh?
Yeah.
And there's a possibility that some UFOs and some of the energy forms that are seen in the sky could be created from your subconscious by the observers. It could be an individual effect, or it could even be a group effect.
Yeah.
And
there's no doubt about it.
Reality.
Yeah. Because it's all in the, I mean, in the end, it's all in the mind. So it's like, I mean, you know, you're talking half a dozen one and six to the other. So it's like, it just reminds me of, God, everything reminds me of the book Conversations with God, maybe because I've read it too many times, but you know, Neil, I don't know if you've ever read that book, Conversations with God, but Neil's having a conversation with God. Neil's the author, and he's like, how do I know this is God? How do I know this isn't just a voice in my head? And God says, what would be the difference? And he's like, yeah. it would end up in the same place, right? But I just think that's funny. It's kind of like, yeah, it's true. What would be the difference? You know, I mean, that's how we experience things. It all ends up in the same place. We can argue about where it originates all day, but that's subjective. You know, it's like, yeah. But no, you're absolutely right. And it's a good question.
And you know, there's a debate, and there used to be a larger debate at Pear Institute about this. Pear is the Princeton Anomalies Research Lab, and it was whether with predictions, whether it's really prediction or whether it's psychokinesis. And you know, I don't know. You know, it could be that you're forcing a future possibility to collapse, rather than
a combination of both. You know,
it could be both, which is even more painful to my brain.
Yeah, which is even more tough to wrap your brain around. Right. You know, I swear to God, with some of these comic books, the moment I saw them and I got a certain kind of excitement in my, you know, in my belly, and then like, or when I picked my number, you know, or I would make a comment like because we would do it all through Instagram on social media, and I would say something like, lucky number 7, you know, or lucky the winning number 7 or something like that, you know, like, and obviously, you know, like I didn't, but sometimes I just knew, you know, I would get a feeling and I could see it, or sometimes I would have a good feeling about it and I would totally detach from it, let it go. And then when it would come time to do the drawing, if he said that, you know, he was going to randomize the list 13 times, the moment I heard 13, I'm like, yes, you know, and everyone looks at me like, fuck, you know, like, and I'm like, that's mine, baby. You know, I start dancing. They're like, this guy's out of his mind. And sure enough, number 13 come up, and my name was right there. And I'm like, I told you. And they're like, what the fuck? You know, like, but some like, and I'm like, how much of it did I influence and how much of it was preordained? And that's always the question. Is like, movies are written about that question, you know, free will versus determinism.
Yeah. Are you influencing the victory, or is the victory choosing you?
Yeah.
This stuff is so wonderful, and the experiences that I've been blessed to be a part of, and the people I've been blessed to help, I'm getting helped more than I'm helping them. You know, when you help someone who's disadvantaged, who's really getting helped the most, it's the most rewarding thing for me than anything. It's so priceless. There's no dollar figure I could put on it. And you know, you're a very selfless guy. I'd love to do everything I could do to help you, teach you some of these processes. Of course, I'm not normally this completely exhausted, but I also think, because I'm not at my mental acuity best right now, we should shoot some more of one of these kind of interviews, so I could take you from the beginning a little bit more. And we haven't even dove into, you know, any of the really super wild.
I know, man. I mean, we didn't even get into what you were doing with Linda, with what I know, man. We're gonna have to. I mean, I would love to learn from you, and I was thinking, like that would be incredible on a personal level,
That would be
and
my honor. That would be
and
my honor. And
that's something that we could do. And then if you wanted to, if we wanted to, try and create a vlog from it that could live on both our channels, I'd be game for that. I don't know how much it would affect, what we were doing, but we could see. I mean, the good thing about, as kind of getting a lot of experience being an actor is you learn to operate, privately in public, and can kind of compartmentalize that part of you. So I don't know, if it would affect my learning or not, but because learning is something that I would want to do for me, but we could try to,
yes,
bring it into our videos, because it's worth sharing. It's worth showing people that they can do it too. Buddy, we're gonna do it again. Before you go, I want to get
let's go.
I want to ask you a metaphysical question that I love. Um, if you could plant a seed in the minds of every human being on this planet, let's say they all went to bed tonight, and you could make a program suggestion for them that would allow them to experience more of what they truly are, and experience other people more for what
Mm.
we truly are. What would you say to them? What seed would you plant?
It would have to be um, it would have to be, you have no idea the power of love. And it's not just words. Those aren't just words. There is a power of love that is more uh, expansive and potent than you ever imagined. And with that, you can do things that you never would have thought possible. That would be the seed, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Or if it could only be like 2 words, it would be explore selflessness.
I love
Yeah.
that too. Yeah. Well, they're both wonderful, because I believe that it's love, that we've been loved right into existence. That's how we got here. That's the driving force, I think, behind everything. And, we can have a podcast just about that, but man, I appreciate your time so much, buddy.
My pleasure, Faust. I feel very happy to have met someone at your level of understanding and compassion. And this industry, this field of research really needs